Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
This is Gregory Rich, host of Drink in the Style and owner of Habitation Furnishing and Design. People often ask me, why habitation for my home? Well, I could give you hundreds of reasons. I could talk about the extensive collection of furnishing suppliers or our exceptionally talented design team. I could talk about service, but the truth is, habitation clients come back room after room and home after home, and that speaks volumes. Habitation puts some drama into your interiors.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Showers and storms tonight with temperatures around 52. More showers and storms on Wednesday with a high of 65.
Black Friday starts early at Warner's Selling Appliance with deals you can't find anywhere else, like free dishwasher installation on brands like KitchenAid, an exclusive 5% savings plus a Black Friday bonus of up to $800 on packages from select brands. Shop now at warnersellian.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Good evening, AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil evening show. You get into a habit. Thanks for joining us for election night coverage here on AM 950. I am nice to be with you. It's nice to be with you this evening. Of course, we'll be going up until 9 o'clock. And then John Mickelson and Brett Johnson are going to take over at 9, take this till we at least get some resolution here, especially on some of the major state races. Now, first of all, we're not going to have anything for Minnesota yet. Their polls don't close until coming up here in about an hour, a little less than an hour. So if you are still having to vote, once again, the broken record, get on out there, get in line. If you are in line to vote, by the time at 8 o'clock, then you will be allowed to vote. But you need to get up there and get in line. If you haven't voted, that's kind of on you. So far, we've had a lot of the states here just closing right now. As a matter of fact, over half the states have now closed. Really, as far as contested races goes, I think really we only have 2 so far that, and I don't think either one of these is too much of a shocker. Ron DeSantis has been declared the winner of the Florida governor race. I don't think Chris ever really had a chance there. Rubio, in some places, has already been picked as the winner of the Florida Senate race. But that's in at least here looking at the New York Times, they haven't put that out there quite yet. Still, way too early to know what's going to happen in some of the states, including Georgia, where they're about 26% reported in, and Warnock is leading there. But once again, these are really early numbers. I think Fetterman's got 4% in, and he's leading by 74%. But that's way too early. Democrats are leading in most of the count so far, but I'll go with North Carolina. Beasley's got a 10-point lead there, but it is relatively early, and it is 44 points, and only 44% of the vote has been cast, and you can switch that fairly quickly. So we'll have to wait to see what happens there. Of the contested House races, there is, so far nothing really so much. We've been keeping an eye on the Virginia races. They're still showing as Republicans leading there, but once again, very early. 45% in for the Virginia 7 race, 34% in for the Virginia 2 race. The similar things. I mean, it's just, there's not North Carolina 13 has got 54% in, and the Democrat nickel is leading there, which is a bit of a good sign. But, and then Florida 13, the Republican Luna is leading there, but 95% in. So that's looking like that's going to be a victory for them on that one. Not sure exactly. Heaven forbid I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to Florida or any of these other races. I'm more focused on what's going to happen here in Minnesota. We will find out. It will be a referendum on the Democratic governor. Republicans have basically screamed crime and black Minneapolis the entire, election season, trying to get people to avoid the fact that the Republican Party overturned Roe v. Wade. And so the question comes down to, is their manufactured outrage, is that offsetting enough to, basically negate their what people should actually be outraged about? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And, well, we'll have to find out. That will be, of course, in an hour. Once again, if you have not voted in Minnesota, please get on out there and vote. The next 2 hours, I am driving this ship. I will say this. I'd say there's unless things are really going badly for Scott Jensen, my guess is we will not have a call on the governor's race until probably in the 9 o'clock hour sometime. And like I said, unless it's really going badly, and if it's really going badly for Jensen, I got to imagine the rest of the Republican ticket down the line is not exactly going to be too thrilled with that. We'll have to find out. But my guess is we'll find out that answer coming up here in the 10 or the 9 o'clock hour. I would say as well, watch that margin, because as I pointed out earlier, if Walz is leading by 10, 12 points, it becomes almost a statistical impossibility that many votes would switch to a Republican and go there. So we'll have to see what happens coming up here with the Minnesota numbers coming up after 8 o'clock when the polls close. Jeff Stein will join us coming here at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk national politics with him. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Robert Pilot will join us, as well as also Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer. But we, of course, are going to be taking a break right now. With the East Coast races coming on in, we felt as if it'd be a pretty good idea to possibly go over and chat with our good friend and evening host here that usually on most evenings, Rick Scott, who is not going to be on the air tonight, obviously, because we've got coverage of the election. But we will be talking. Rick Scott is going to be kind enough to join us when we do return. It is the Matt McNeil show. Rick Smith. I'm thinking of Tim Scott down in South Carolina one. Rick Smith. There he goes. Rick Smith will join us when we do come on back. It's the Matt McNeil show right here on AM 950.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shamblock. My dad is Dr. Scott Shamblock from Shamblock Family Dentistry. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist, but you don't have to be. My dad makes going to the dentist comfortable and even fun. He won't be mad if you haven't seen a dentist in a long time. He just wants to take care of you and your teeth. If you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblock Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblockfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Join us for New Beginnings, Saturday mornings at 11, brought to you in part by Vision Loss Resources.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. Even though Auto Technical is a small nonprofit, we have helped more families with transportation than any organization in Minnesota. Since '94, we have reconditioned donated vehicles so they have a higher tax benefit. Call Richard at 612-919-5526, 612-919-5526, or autotech.org.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Rose. Dad, please don't make me read this next line.
I guess whenever your friends are over, I'll pull out the banjo.
No, fine. My dad is a mountain of integrity in these trying times, Matt McNeil.
Indeed.
Mountain of something. Fall school days means sports, music, school events, and activities. The Toyota Sienna is perfect. It fits all my friends, and with me now learning to drive, its safety features make my parents happy too.
For top-notch sales and service, go to Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
It's an absolute must for any true foodie. Vinaigrette at 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis offers premium oils and vinegars for the most discriminating of tastes. This is Sarah Piepenberg, owner of Vinaigrette. We bottle on-site, there's no guesswork, and you get to taste test each and every oil and vinegar we offer. Our direct relationship with the growers ensures an uncompromised level of satisfaction. When you need to know you're cooking with the finest ingredients, first contact the independently owned Vinaigrette, 50th and Xerxes in South Minneapolis. Online at vinaigrettemn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Election night coverage right here on AM 950. Good to have you with us. Matt McNeil here till 9 o'clock. Still waiting. Hopefully I have Rick Smith going to be joining us here fairly soon to talk about things, especially going out there. It's, once again, we're paying attention to the races out on the East Coast and Pennsylvania, where he's located at. And the labor vote. And it's interesting because this is usually the labor vote. I mean, it was something that was, with all the interviews I did for the Democrats of the day, we did notice the pretty substantial amount of labor unions endorsing candidates throughout Minnesota. One of the things, though, and from really outside of one trade union, every other union was supporting the Democrats. It was one of those things where this time around, because the bullet points were not there, you didn't hear too much in the way of labor issues, being the forefront. But the reality is the Democrats, the trade unions are not fools. They know exactly who to work with, and they worked it as well with the Democrats and the DFL across the country. Rick Smith is kind enough to join us right now. The Rick Smith Show, you can hear weeknights here on AM 950, not tonight with the election coverage, but Rick is kind enough to join us to talk about what he is seeing so far. Hey, Rick.
Matt, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm getting ready for the numbers to come rolling in, and we're going to find out what kind of country we got.
Well, let's, first of all, what are some of the bellwethers for you, the benchmarks that you're going to keep an eye on here early? Because there is this question on whether or not this Democratic wave, which has happened since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, is it still there? Is it still as strong as possible? Saw a lot of numbers pointing to early voting was favoring the Dems. New women registered to vote and they're not doing that because of inflation. They're doing that because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So we'll have to see how that happens. What are you keeping an eye on right now?
The same stuff. I mean, the reality is this going to be Rovember as it's been billed, or is this going to be just another midterm November where, the party in the White House takes a little bit of a beating or a massive beating? This is what we're going to find out. In my state of Pennsylvania, we're going to find out, if we're going to elect a Nazi. I've got some hope, but the sad reality is I listened to some of the rhetoric around the Mastriano camp, and the idea that tonight they're just going to declare victory and grab the mantle because it's theirs. They're going to fight and win, that kind of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how this evening plays out.
How is that race? I mean, for a lot of us out here, I mean, the impression I got was it was favoring the Democrat to win that race.
Yeah, I mean, all of the polling is moving in the direction of Josh Shapiro, who is a good man. He was an incredible attorney general. He will make a great governor here in Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania's got this weird little glitch in its election law that says they're not going to start counting the mail-in ballots until 7 o'clock or until 8 o'clock when the polls close. So there's going to be no election results tonight. And what the Trump people wanted to do is declare victory, because they knew the mail-in ballots weren't going to be counted for days, and they're not going to be counted for days here in Pennsylvania. So we won't have a definitive winner until, every vote is counted down the road. And the Republicans know this. And they're saying, look, election night, we're going to declare victory because the people who went to the polls, that's where they've already telegraphed this. They've told us what they're going to do. So don't be surprised when it happens.
Fetterman, you think he's going to be able to pull that one out over Dr. Oz?
Oh, I hope. I saw John in Erie at the beginning of our Working Class Heroes tour, and he was struggling to get the lines out. You could see that he was working. It was there. It's in his head. He was struggling to get the words out because, look, you have a stroke. there's some healing, some recovery that has to happen. Doesn't mean he's mentally diminished. Doesn't mean that he's got any. It means he's struggling to get the mechanics back. And he said it during the debate. I'm going to mash some words together. I'm going to misspeak sometimes. We're going to find out what kind of a state we are. Are we a compassionate state that looks at this and says, yeah, he's going to heal. We understand the medical part of this. Or are we the kind of state that's going to go, well, we're going to go to the other guy because we don't think, we don't think your medical condition is going to get better. I'm hoping. I'm hoping we're a state that goes understands how this works, but a little hairier in my view.
They've already made some calls in Florida. DeSantis is going to win the governor's race down there. Rubio is going to win the Senate race. It's kind of one of those things where I remember Ohio. I remember Florida. I remember Missouri. These used to be toss-up states, but now as we look at Florida here, once again, firmly in the hands of the Republicans. I think that, the way, and this is, there obviously this hurricane that came through, very horrible, very bad, but it allowed DeSantis to get away from the politics and just be that governor who's there on an emergency scene. And I think that did a lot to help propel him to his victory tonight.
No, I agree. And, the reality is we're in a moment where people have got their hats, if you bought the red hat or the blue hat. And as I've been saying, at some point, the working class of this country has got to put down the red hat or the blue hat, put back on the hard hat. And we got to get back to work and rebuild this country and reunite on things that bring us together. For too long, we've been ripped apart and divided and sliced and diced. And at the end of the day, what we find out is, the wealth class of this country keeps getting everything they want. And you wonder why the working class is angry. As we did our month-long tour that took us through your backyard.
Yeah.
One of the things that kept coming up time and time again was, working class people are angry because, they're the city of used to be. How many cities of used to be did we go to? We used to be the place that made glass. We used to be the place that made tires. We used to be the place that made rubber. We used to be. And it's been replaced with, drug treatment centers. It's been replaced with gig economy jobs. It's been replaced with things where people are struggling to get by and make ends meet. And you wonder why that anger is there. So what the right has done masterfully, and you have to give them credit, is they've force-fed them a diet of outrage candy and anger in other directions, where they think they can make the change. And I think this is where we are. And the hope is we can begin to bring this back to it's the economy, stupid. It's the economics. It's how we rebuild the country. And I think Biden, for as poorly as he can communicate at these moments, he's been doing the work. The idea of reshoring manufacturing, investing in infrastructure, and strengthening workers' rights, all moving us, I think, in the right direction. Even though I know all the polling, Matt says, we're off the wrong direction. I think that's the way to go. We'll see it tonight if the voters see that.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think part of the trap that Democrats have is that they get these lofty, haughty kind of issues, and they think to themselves, oh, aren't we being progressive? Aren't we being there? And they just don't want to realize that people care still about the bread and butter base core issues. And I think that they sometimes they don't see the forest for the trees. And I think that there's sometimes that there's low hanging fruit they could easily take and run with. And they know we're going to outthink ourselves. They sometimes try to be too clever.
No, and this is one of the things that I keep coming back to is people love progressive policies. We've been trained like Pavlovian dogs to hate progressives. But the policies, you start talking about, hey, we need to pave the roads and rebuild the bridges. People are, yes, we need to bring back those union jobs and those protections for workers in the workplace. People are, yeah, we need to invest in education and healthcare and a way for a family to be able to thrive and survive and to have opportunity. Yeah, they're on board with it. It's, it comes down to the delivery mechanism, which is why I think, the stuff that you were doing and you're doing with KTNF and other stations across the country are doing are so vitally important to get out there and tell those stories. I mean, I go back to the Trump years. If you listen to Trump's rhetoric, you would have thought he was the greatest president since Eisenhower, since, Nixon. You would think he was the greatest president ever. And what he was the Nixon of our era. He was the worst guy possible. But if you listen to the rhetoric, Matt, you think he was doing the job, and he wasn't.
Well, it's it really, I think one of the things that we have to focus on is not, the old skiing things. Don't get your head above your skis because then you can tumble down. And I think if you misplay how you talk to the people, and this is one of the things Republicans have done very well. They are insanely good at messaging. And when they get focus beam on something, it's very difficult to break it. Now, here's the question. Something that's very much away from the Roe v. Wade situation, as you said. I mean, you seeing numbers. The early voting favored the Democrats. The women, new voters favored women voting far more than men, which is usually never the case. A 10-15 advantage for women, new voters there. I think that there's something here, but will it be enough? Because as we always know, come election day itself, every Republican shows up to vote.
And that's what it was in my neighborhood today. I waited in line longer than I probably ever have, even during a presidential. They came out and they were excited to vote for someone who I view as just horribly unacceptable to be governor, and this Doug Mastriano, who has said he will pass the no rights at work agenda, who has said that if he doesn't like the results of elections, well, they may not honor those elections. They may throw ballots out. He has said a lot of things that are to the extreme of even Trump, and people were excited. There were that party excited about it, and we're in a kind of a crisis moment because this election also is about, do we believe in democracy? Do we believe in the right of everyone to vote? And sadly, I'm seeing all these election deniers who are running for office, and I gotta wonder, if they win, will they deny the election?
I did want to ask you one quick, kind of comical thing about Pennsylvania. Oz this weekend was talking about, he apparently didn't know when the Pittsburgh Steelers played. Now, I don't know much about Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania as a whole, but I do know this. When the Eagles play, when the Steelers play, and when Penn State plays. And it's the fact that he has, I mean, as much as we want to joke something about that, that actually damaged him, because once again, you do not look like you're relatable if hey, I hear there's a football team here in town. And he has himself sounded very unrelatable at times to the voters of Pennsylvania.
No, you would argue that he doesn't even live here. So, why would he know? It's kind of like J.D. Vance not knowing you put the I-O at the end of O-H. For those who don't live in Ohio, that's the Buckeyes cheer, they go O-H-I-O. He didn't know that either, because they're not in touch with average, everyday working people, which is why, those two races to me are really important ones, because you really do have in Tim Ryan and John Fetterman people who understand what's going on in the working class, what it means to take a shower at the end of the day, what it means to struggle to make ends meet. I don't quite believe that with the J.D. Vances and the Oz's at this moment. And they've run very elitist campaigns, I think. And what's frightening is they both may win. And to have those voices in the Senate instead of two good, solid working class voices that could help make lives better is kind of frightening to me in this moment.
A few races, though, that are not looking bad for the Democrats right now. New Hampshire, that Senate race right now, it's only 14% in, but it's still a 24-point lead for Hassan. In North Carolina, Beasley leads by +7. That's with 53% in. That's actually pretty good. And in Georgia, it's coming in slowly, but Warnock's still leading by 9 points right now with 36% in. I will also add in the Texas governor race with 21% in, Beto O'Rourke is leading by 8. And by the way, that's going to be a fascinating race, that Texas governor's race, because there are still a lot of people in Texas furious with what happened with the power grid back last year with the winter. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of these races. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've said for a while, I think Walker is going to win in Georgia. I don't want that, but I think he's going to. Some of the folks that I know have said that they believe that he's been treated unfairly by the mean media, by reporting accurately his lifestyle and all of the things that he's done, that evidently is, they believe they've been too critical of poor Herschel for, the abortion positions and his wife being afraid that he's going to murder her. They believe that that's I'm struggling with this, but they believe that the media has been too critical. And I fear that sentiment could bring him a small number of votes, but enough that, well, could swing that.
It's standard operating procedure. When you have someone who's such an incompetent fool as Herschel Walker is, the only response you have is, well, the big old mean media is being a big old meanie pants by actually factually reporting what's going on. All right, Rick, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much. I hope you're wrong in Georgia. I hope it goes the Democrats' way in Pennsylvania. And God bless to everyone out there.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Matt.
Take care. Rick Smith, The Rick Smith Show, weeknights here on AM 950, a fantastic show. And Rick is, if you didn't get a chance when we did AM 950 movie night with him, just an absolutely spectacular individual and just a lot of fun to chat with. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, another update on the national side. Jeff Stein, our national and presidential expert, is going to be kind enough to join us to talk about some of the early results and what he expects to see as well. It is election night coverage right here on AM 950.
Don't be surprised if you hear your name when you walk into St. Paul Corner Drug. Our experienced staff make getting to know you their top priority. Developing a trusting relationship with our patients is the first step in providing personalized care that achieves the best outcomes possible. Make certain all your providers know who you are and what your needs are. It is a vital step in your well-being. Stop by St. Paul Corner Drug today to start a relationship with a staff that cares. St. Paul Corner Drug, pharmacy the way it should be.
Hello, AM 950 listener. I know you. You take the news seriously. When you read the headlines these days, it makes you want to hang your head down and cry. Well, to hell with that. What you need is a laugh from the left. So, do yourself a favor. Listen to Facepalm America with host Beowulf Rockland every Sunday night at 9.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Crooner Supper Club invites you to Maggie's Lounge, an exciting new bar lounge. It's open Wednesdays through Sundays beginning at 4:30 for cocktails and light fare. And you don't need a ticket to enjoy the great atmosphere of Maggie's. So stop by Crooner Supper Club off Moore Lake and Highway 65 for dinner, drinks, and live music from both big-name local and national artists. Cafe Latte combines a cafe dining experience with gourmet quality food. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
On This Queer Book Saved My Life, we talk with LGBTQ guests from across the rainbow about the queer books that saved their lives. On November 12th, we chat with Nancy Agabian about the groundbreaking memoir In the Dream House by National Book Award finalist Carmen Maria Machado. This book breaks the silence of abuse and queer relationships, and we talk with Nancy and Carmen about writing into that pain and what it takes to share difficult stories. Join us this Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on AM 950.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our live call-in talk show airing every Saturday from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights you need to know to live and age well. Each week, we talk with guests who provide answers to important questions regarding healthcare, elder care, end-of-life care, and self-care for caregivers, and help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Showers and storms tonight with temperatures around 52. More showers and storms on Wednesday with a high of 65. The locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oils and vinegars since 2009. That's Vinaigrette, Xerxes Avenue and 50th Street in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It is election night coverage for you on election night 2022. We, of course, Minnesota's polls will not close for another 26 minutes. We'll try to get you some results in here as the evening goes on. And once again, I'm here till 9 o'clock. We have Brett and Todd Mickelson coming in at 9 o'clock to take us through the evening. Jeff Stein, and by the way, you can watch this if you like. We are live streaming the show on all the usual suspect spots. Jeff Stein is kind enough to join us for a usual treat. We usually get him on election nights talking with some of the national results that have come on and what he expects to see. Hey, Jeff.
Matthew, good evening. And here we go again. Another election night, my friend.
So, I mean, first of all, I don't think there's anything that's shocking here. I talked to our last guest a little bit about the Florida stuff. I think that, and once again, what happened with the hurricane, horrible, wrong. What the hurricane allowed Ron DeSantis to do was not only go get those knee-high white boots, which are so attractive, but as well, he was able to kind of get away from the election thing and basically be able to go be governor person. And this has happened, in numerous times where you have an earthquake or some other natural disaster. It requires whoever the incumbent is to stop campaigning and go do what he needs to do. I think that was a benefit to him. He's already been declared the winner in the Florida governor's race. And I just don't think Christ ever really got his campaign going.
No, I think Charlie Crist is probably in hindsight saying, why'd I give up my House seat for this? Because at the time he weighed in, you've got DeSantis as a midway through first term governor. He's got the stench of Trump from being so closely associated. That appears to be changing. But there were a lot of folks who said, well, let's just see how DeSantis handles a crisis like a hurricane. He worked with the Democrats in Washington. He was on the same stage with Biden. He didn't do anything that was political. He didn't really seem to stub his toe. Now, again, Floridians know how to recover from this. So really, the only thing DeSantis was able to do, to your point, he didn't fall on his face. That was what was needed to be done. And here you go with a big early victory, or an early prediction, or an early call on something that I frankly was more surprised that the Rubio race was called as early as it was, not the outcome, but the speed.
I was too. And as a matter of fact, once again, Val Deming's not a bad Democratic candidate, but I think, are we looking at frankly, are we looking at a coattails of DeSantis issue here? Because, it's almost, it's a little less than 1 million votes. It really is Rubio very, trouncing Demings and winning that seat very handily.
She was a tremendous candidate. She's got a great resume. It just wasn't the right year, as it turned out. And yeah, there's a bit of a coattail effect. But again, I'm not, as I'm seeing some people say, well, there you go, look at Florida, and here comes the wave. No, just settle down, Chester. It's not a wave by any stretch. Florida went the way it was expected to go. Okay.
Well, like Tim Scott, I had someone do the same thing when Tim Scott got reelected in South Carolina. Said, and he's like, see, another great victory. He's like, was Tim Scott factored to lose? I don't even know if the Democrats ran a candidate against him down there. There is some that are predicted to go this way.
The governor there won re-election, the Republican governor. I had someone ask, and I respect the question, but they said, well, now that Guam has elected a Republican for the first time since, who knows?
As goes Guam,
and so it was, well, now is that an indicator? It's an indicator about Guam in 2022. Yeah. That's it. You try to push me into saying this and that constitutes a movement or a trend, and I always push back. I'm not going to go along with Guam and Florida, for heaven's sake.
Well, and you've always said this, and this is actually, I think, all politics is local. That is why you have to look at these races individually and what is on the street. And I just had an interesting conversation with Rick Smith, the national host out of Pennsylvania. Right. And, it's, the question, he's hoping Fetterman wins. I think that's a much closer race. I don't think the governor's race is close, but the concern that they have there is that the Republican, frankly, kind of extremist far right, almost, cosplaying a Nazi half the damn time is basically said he's just going to declare victory, a la similar to Trump, even though he knows because of the way Pennsylvania law works, they won't even start counting the mail-in ballots until 8 o'clock tonight. So they're just starting this. It's going to be well into tomorrow or maybe even the day after before we know what happened in those races. But he's already, there a bigger concern is, will he undermine the legitimacy of the election by claiming, see, I've already won?
Okay, first of all,
Yes.
Now you've inflamed Twitter again because you used the word Nazi. You got called out for that the other day by one of your listeners. So
I said cosplay. I didn't say he was. There's a big difference between was, but it's cosplaying. When I go to a Star Trek convention, I don't think that that's actually Mr. Spock, but the guy likes Mr. Spock quite a bit, clearly. So I mean, I think that that's the way I'll go with it. Or
it's your station, it's your show, you go with it. But no,
data.
information, no, certainly not. Okay, so there are different rules, all right, and that's part of the good part of each state has its own little set of things, and so if they can run it without a problem, then tremendous. I'm not a big fan of the 1% in rush to the podium and declare victory routine. I'm not a big fan when you are ahead by a small amount and there are hundreds of thousands of votes to be counted. I'm not a big fan of jumping out there and saying, there, I declare victory, because all that does is signal to your followers that if all the votes are counted and you don't win, well, there must have been subterfuge and shenanigans and things going on. I mean, you come out, you graciously say, it looks good based on election day voting, and now we'll see how those of you who voted early came to play on it. I mean, that's really all you should do, unless you have a different motive, different agenda.
Georgia is probably the most fascinating of the early races here. The Senate race down there. And reminder, if neither one of these guys gets 50%, they have to have a runoff. That's the rule of Georgia, as you talk about each individual state.
Yeah.
Warnock right now is leading with 43% of the vote in. He's leading by 5 points. One of the things I thought was interesting was they said 37% of the voters in the state of Georgia had already voted early. Now, that's not 37% of an off-year election. That's just of all voters in the state. So that's like, you're thinking to yourself almost like a presidential election year. 37% of them have already voted, and there were a definitive lean towards the Dems on that.
Yeah.
So far, they've just gotten to 43%. So it's going to be interesting to see where that falls down because, once again, the big question here is the outrage over the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the Dodd decision, is that basically enough to fuel the Democrats into just enough victories to basically prevent what should be on paper, an overwhelming Republican year? The reality is there's a very decent chance the Democrats could hold the Senate and various state houses as well. I think it is going to be fascinating to watch that race because there was definitely an energy, a momentum that was there. And I don't know if it's the early voting or not, or the rules in place to prevent that you can't have food or drink while you wait in line to vote. But maybe that's what the unintentional consequences is that early voting is now so much more popular because of the kind of mean-spirited rules about day of voting.
Just because they hold an election in an elementary school doesn't mean that you treat the voters like they're elementary kids. No chewing of gum, Tommy. It's some of this is silliness. The thing that I am going to find interesting, and you mentioned the two best examples that you have across the country, Pennsylvania and Georgia. You've got governor's races and Senate races, and you could have different partisan outcomes. In other words, you could have a situation where Kemp wins, the Republican for governor in Georgia, but Warnock, the Democrat, wins for Senate, both statewide races. You could go to Pennsylvania. Oz could win as the Republican for the Senate. The incumbent governor, the Democrat, could win. I keep hearing it's mostly Republicans who say, well, I can't believe they're going to vote for a Republican of one party and then that many people will switch and vote for the Democrat of the other party. And my response is check the results for the last 25 years. It is not in many, many states an automatic that if you've got a D at the top of the ticket for governor, that D is going to be able to grab coattails for Senate. May have happened in Florida, but again, you had two Republican incumbents. And so, whose coattails was Marco grabbing onto DeSantis's coattails? Maybe. But that's what takes us to the locality, the localness of it all, right? Because if it was abortion, then you just go party line, here's your capital D up and down the line. And they're not doing that. And so the question is, are there enough of those to get over some reservations people might have because of other issues on that Democratic candidate.
I think the most, you brought up Georgia. I think there's, Kemp, because he was on the abusive side of Trump, actually that played out for him. And we were talking about this earlier today with Cliff Schechter on my show. He said he feels as if that Georgia very much Warnock could win the Senate seat and Kemp could win the governor's race. Now, I will say this. There is a limit to that. I mean, if it's like a 10-point Democratic win for governor, you're asking for a lot of people to switch the party vote down the line. Not saying it's unprecedented, not saying it's not going to happen, but that's pretty rare. I think usually it's about 6-7 points. If it's in there, then I think you can definitely see if that's the top ticket is a 6-point win for one party. I think it's if it gets more than that, it's relatively safe for the rest of the Republicans down the line, as long as there's not external issues that can negate them.
Well, and here where I'm in the state of Iowa, there are 2 statewide office holders, treasurer and attorney general. They've each been in office. Democrats have been in office for 35 to 40 years. And it's entirely possible that both will win re-election, certainly the treasurer. And that's despite the fact that the governor is probably going to win, the Republican governor is probably going to win by 15 to 18 percentage points. And so, again, it's a habit thing too, right? I mean, there have been people who have been used to voting for an R for this office, a D for this office for a long time. In their minds, they think it's a quality check, right? To make sure the one side doesn't get too much power out of control. I just think that we run the risk when we lump people into too many categories, especially if it's an independent, because where's the partisan loyalty there, right, Matt? I mean, if you are very clear about your political leanings and you put out on the Twitter machine, I think, here's my ballot. Look what I did. Okay. You are an informed partisan and you believe what you believe. If someone is a registered independent because they do not want to affiliate with either side, well, that makes it harder to predict how they will do up and down the ballot.
Well, and I think that's why you have to get to a certain point. I mean, if it's a 12-point win for, say, I'll just go with Minnesota, and I don't know what's going to happen, the poll's still closed. You can still go vote here in Minnesota for another 14 minutes. But or if you're in line by 14 minutes, you'll be able to vote tonight. If Walz wins by 12, I don't care what people say about, say, the attorney general's race. It's now you're starting getting into those statistical improbabilities that you're saying to me that 12% of the voters are going to just all of a sudden switch. I mean, sure, there is some individualism, but I think you get to that point where that it does break, and they're just, even a good candidate just can't overcome, and this is the problem with a really bad top of the ticket candidate for one party or the other, is that if you have that, it can end up stymieing the rest of the ticket down the road.
That's absolutely correct. And the only caveat I draw on that is if you've got someone at the top of the ticket winning by 12 or 15 percentage points, but yet down ticket, there's a longtime incumbent from the other party predating the top of the ticket person. Again, habits are hard to break, right? And especially if, there's also something in the mind of people, even if they're registered, they're not passionate partisans, they're D's, but they don't want to be cornered. And so they always vote for at least one R so that they can say they did. And you get some of that sometimes, I mean, and maybe that's why they don't allow food and drink in line, because, drinking in line is not helpful when you go. That's why I went in the morning today. I thought it would be safer.
What was it like for you? Did you see a lot of people at the polls?
I actually did. Now, again, I vote in a town of 1,800 people. All right. And it was 11 in the morning. And I mean, they had 2 different precincts, the rural and urban precincts of Bremer County, Iowa, and in 2 different rooms of the local community center. And there's lines. There was a line out the door. And that wasn't the lunch rush. That was like, okay, let's try to get in here before it gets too much busier. So, it was a good, pleasant day. And it seems like there were folks who were motivated.
Tell you what, let's take a break. Come back. I want to put out 2 things to you, but when we do come back, I'm going to ask you if there's another thing that we should be factoring into the turnout machine that I don't think either you or I have talked about, but I'm starting. I read something about this, and I mentioned it earlier today on my show, but I want to get your thoughts on that. I'll save that little gem for you when we do return. Jeff Stein, kind enough to join us. We'll take a quick little break. Come on back. It's the election night coverage right here on AM 950.
Hey, Cudahy, this is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. On our show, we talk about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with Native news that you won't hear anywhere else. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weeknights from 6 to 7 p.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
This is the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space.
And our intention is that these conversations spark your own curiosity that creates a life that totally lights you up.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. See you soon and stay curious.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Hello, this is Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio. Now my show will be on Saturdays from 10 to 11 and replayed on Sundays from 1 to 2. You will get to the best of Ellie 2.0 with talking about idealism with guests who come in and who are idealistic, who are trying to change the world. And you will get me, Super Idealist. Tune in. We can't wait to hear from you. And you'll hear from me Saturdays from 10 to 11.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, pet ethics. Is it okay to own animals?
It's not just okay, it's a moral requirement. Everybody should have a dog.
Does everyone's dog get to live its best life?
Not every pet needs as much care as a dog. You could get a hamster or a goldfish.
Not every pet needs as little as a dog. What about parrots or sugar gliders?
Pet ethics. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
Election night coverage right here on AM 950. Good to have you with us, Matt McNeil, Jeff Stein, kind enough to join us. I was about to ask you about the a little bit of surprise, an eyebrow raiser earlier. Texas governor, we had Beto O'Rourke leading with about 20% of the vote in, but now at 28%, Abbott's back up by +4. So I know a lot of people in Texas are still furious at Abbott about that whole debacle with the power grid last winter.
Oh, absolutely. And if you were seriously affected by that and you've been waiting for your one chance to teach that governor a lesson, well, this is the first opportunity that you've had. I don't know that O'Rourke's star is as bright as it once was, and so therefore has he been able to, recapture some of that real spark he had when he was a member of Congress? Don't know.
There is one thing you and I have not factored in. Unfortunately, and very sadly, a lot of people died of COVID in this country. And the reality is the vast majority of people who died were elderly people, and elderly people have a tendency of voting Republican. Now, I'm not sure if there's been any analysis or anything like this, but considering the impact this had and how many people did indeed die for this, I mean, do you think that there's any potential of impact on any of these races due to the fact that in some cases, I mean, Minnesota, we had 13,000 people die. If say of the people that were voting age and voting, you had a 65-35 split in regards to Republicans to Democrats. Do you think that that would actually impact overall results in any of these races?
So many of these are tight to where any amount, right? I mean, I'm down the road from a congressional district decided 2 years ago by 6 votes, for crying out loud. So it's impossible to say that it has no effect. I don't believe it'll have a major effect, quite honestly, because you're right about the mortality and the age for COVID, but there are some of those folks who age out of voting, frankly, for a variety of reasons. Some of it access, some of it health. So it's an interesting thought. And as you look down the road at the demographics, a week from now, when we look at the demographics, if it's down in a certain state that had a high mortality rate for COVID, you could very well be right.
It is fascinating to me that, and I said this, this last summer, in the wake of the Dodd decision, the overturning of Roe v. Wade,
Mhm.
that it will be interesting to see if outrage, democratic outrage, does what it does something different than it usually does. And usually democratic outrage lasts about as long as sour cream. It really is 2 to 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden they're kind of flighty and they're off their go. And the reality is it does seem like this is different. But I mean, right now, there's not a lot of races that have been called, which might be a sign of positivity for the Democrats. But it really is kind of interesting. It doesn't seem to be anything overwhelming, at least. I think we can say that it's like that there hasn't been any, and granted, once again, you do have certain states which are unique, like Pennsylvania, how they count their votes. But you haven't had anything that's like already it's like, wow, yeah, he's already in a pretty big hole here because of the Democratic turnout was so high.
Yeah, there's nothing that's a surprise. I mean, here we are. Polls are almost closed in Minnesota and in Iowa, and there's no big national surprise yet. Usually you have something. It seems like the ones that were going to go true to form have pretty quickly done so. The ones that we thought we might have to wait tonight into tomorrow into Thursday, those are shaping up that way. So again, no surprises, no big headlines yet, other than staying the course early on.
Real quick in the final minutes here we have, what do you think is going to happen down in Iowa?
Oh, in Iowa, I think just based upon what little I hear on the ground and about turnout, I think it is going to be a strong night for Republicans. And I think it's a 60-40 chance that it'll be a sweep of the congressional delegation. That means holding two that are first term Republican incumbents and then flipping the one Democrat seat to Republican.
Was that expected? Is that expected in the polling?
Yeah, it's been leaning red, but it's a 2-term incumbent. And again, if they turn out the metro areas of Des Moines, then that's where her strength has been. It's the only county she has won in her 2 elections. Of some 20 counties, she's won the metro of Polk County. And this may be the time that they'll peel off, the Republicans will peel off enough suburban votes to go with the rural votes in a recharacterized, reconfigured district.
Jeff Stein, once again. Jeff, I imagine you and I will have a few things to talk about tomorrow when you join me for your regular Wednesday visit, correct?
Go for football, right?
Go for football. Well, I got news. Iowa's going to come up here, so it's going to be that's going to be an interesting game. I
had no idea that they were playing. I don't care about
no, it's in 2 weeks. They got Gophers got Northwestern this next weekend.
Still don't care. Still don't care.
Jeff Stein. Jeff, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All my best, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Take care. Jeff Stein, kind enough to join us for his usual, election night coverage here. And once again, he will be here for his usual Wednesday visit as well in the results. So far, once again, nothing really called. 9 o'clock, a lot of states closing, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Louisiana, and New York all close at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Not sure how long it will take for us to start seeing results here in Minnesota in regards to the Minnesota races. But once again, we have got, I want to thank Rick Smith and Jeff Stein for joining us this hour. Got Robert Pilot coming up here at the beginning of the next hour, as well as Patrick Cooligan joining us too. Plus results as we get them. And once again, it's just going to be determined how quickly the results get in from these polling places, and we can get some real ideas of what things are looking like. Once again, I'm here till 9 o'clock. Brett Johnson and Todd Mickelson, they're going to be here at 9 o'clock, take you through the rest of the evening and the results on what happens here in Minnesota. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's election night coverage on AM 950. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for fun. Your friends and your family will have a great time with the fantastic food like the pizzas, appetizers, burgers, entrees, and sandwiches. The best bowling in Minnesota, the wildly popular outdoor patio, great drink specials, all the big games on their numerous screens, and it's the perfect place for your next private event. Even large gatherings for over 200. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for everyone age 1 to 100. Come see for yourself. Have fun at the Park Tavern, Louisiana Avenue, north of Highway 7 in St. Louis Park.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
Hey, Minnesota, it's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast. You're listening to AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
I'm Tim McGuire. Florida's top Republicans, Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Marco Rubio, have won re-election. AP's Meg Kennard has this on DeSantis' political ambitions.
He's spent the past 4 years advocating for a number of different policies in Florida, a lot of which have garnered him national media attention. There's also a large question as to whether Ron DeSantis is going to be mounting his own presidential bid in the next cycle or two, something that he wouldn't definitively give an answer on recently during one of his gubernatorial debates.
DeSantis beat former Governor Charlie Crist, while Rubio defeated Orlando area Congressional Representative Val Demings. AP's Norman Hall reports history has been made in the race to replace Demings.
Democrat Maxwell Alejandro Frost has defeated Republican Calvin Wimbish for Florida U.S. House seat, making Frost the first member of Generation Z to win a seat in Congress. Frost, a 25-year-old gun reform and social justice activist, ran in a heavily blue Orlando area district being relinquished by Democratic Representative Val Demings. She challenged Republican Senator Marco Rubio this year. Frost is a former March for Our Lives organizer seeking stricter gun control laws and has stressed opposition to restrictions on abortion rights. Generation Z generally refers to those born between the late 1990s to early 2010s. To become a member of Congress, candidates must be at least 25 years old. I'm Norman Hall.
Former Trump White House press secretary Sarah Sanders elected governor of Arkansas, filling an office once held by her father, Mike Huckabee. Sanders shattered state fundraising records with her campaign, which focused primarily on national issues. She regularly promised to use the office to fight President Biden in what she called the radical left. Misinformation emerges in Arizona. News of snags with vote tabulators spawned baseless claims about vote rigging. In Pennsylvania, election officials pushed back on baseless claims that delays in counting the vote equated to election fraud. This is AP News.
Girls and boys in poverty around the world are dreaming of a better life, filled with dance, art, music, and knowledge. They dream of a brighter future with enough nutritious food to eat, a chance to learn and grow, to get an education, escape poverty, and do incredible things. Today, thanks to Children International and friends like you, such dreams are coming true. Together, we give children a chance to set their sights high and succeed in school and in life by ensuring that they have access to healthcare, education, life skills, and so much more so they can grow, thrive, and believe in themselves. Learn more about Children International and join us in our life-changing work at children.org today. Together, we can help end poverty for good.
Now that autumn is here, get your vehicle service done at Rudy Luther Toyota. Regardless of where you purchased your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is your #1 destination for auto service and repair. For routine maintenance or a larger repair, easily schedule your appointment on their website, rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com. They fit with your schedule, they're fast and courteous, and they do the job right. I trust them. With the cooler weather, keep your vehicle running at its best with service from Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of downtown Minneapolis on 394.
Hi, my name is Pamela Topchian. I'm a former nurse, published author, and board-certified hypnotherapist with hypnobreakthrough.com. Do you feel stuck in a rut? Finding yourself wondering if this is all there is to life? Tired of just existing? Hypno Breakthrough can help you to reduce stress, release fears, gain confidence, and reach your life's goals holistically, mindfully, and gently. So I ask you, what changes would you like to see in your life? Let's talk about it. Contact me, Pamela Topchian, board certified hypnotherapist, to schedule your free consultation, which includes a complimentary stress-reducing sample session, so you can see how it feels for yourself before any commitments are made. Go to hypnobreakthrough.com for all the information. That's hypnobreakthrough.com.
Hi, I'm Claire Ferreira, president and owner of Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. My grandfather started Standard over 90 years ago, and we've been a family-owned company ever since, serving over 500,000 of our fellow Minnesotans. I'm proud to be the fourth generation of my family working in our business. And when we say we treat our employees and clients like family, we truly mean it. See how we can help your family stay comfortable all year long at standardheating.com. That's standardheating.com.
Standard Heating and Air Conditioning wants to remind you that winter is coming soon. Now is the best time to replace your furnace before we get that first sub-zero cold snap. Get a quote today by calling 612-824-2656 or visit standardheating.com. Plus, Standard Heating is hiring. Are you an HVAC technician with experience under your belt? Are you looking to improve your work-life balance, receive excellent benefits, 401k match, and even tuition reimbursement? Well, Standard Heating and Air Conditioning is looking for you. Learn more and apply today at standardheating.com/careers.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Showers and storms tonight with temperatures around 52. More showers and storms on Wednesday with a high of 65.
Black Friday starts early at Warner Selling and Appliance with deals you can't find anywhere else, like free dishwasher installation on brands like KitchenAid, an exclusive 5% savings plus a Black Friday bonus of up to $800 on packages from select brands. Shop now at warnersellian.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, election night 2022. Matt McNeil in covering the election results as Minnesota's polls just closed. So welcome to the show. We have nothing to report as of right now, although on the national front, we do report the Democrat has won the Pennsylvania governor's race. I think that race has been called in Pennsylvania. We'll wait to see for that for sure. But yeah, we're keeping an eye on things right now, seeing where things are at. Polls just closing, so we should start seeing some results coming in here relatively soon. It's as I say, it's the great refresh. We're watching these polling sites that are the reporting sites and just hitting refresh over and over again, seeing what we can find. Right now, though, once again, polls just closing in Minnesota, as is Wisconsin. So we'll hopefully have some results here. Now, if we don't have anything by the end of this hour, we've got, of course, Todd Mickelson, Brett Johnson in starting at 9 o'clock, and they'll carry you through the rest of the evening until we get some results here in Minnesota. I am here. We've got Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer joining us here in a little bit, but kind enough to join us right now from Native Roots Radio, I Am Awake. It's Robert Pilot, who is kind enough to take some time this evening to talk about the election so far. Hi, Robert.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Matt. Exciting and nail-biting right now. It's interesting what's going on nationally. I was watching CNN just before I jumped on here. There's 55% of the vote in, so it's still anybody's game. But wow, just real interesting.
What do you think is going to? I mean, there definitely seems to be in Minnesota a lot of people who were very upset about the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And that, yes, there might have been issues with inflation and stuff that was in most election cycles would have been overridden pretty much anyone else's other outrage. But it did seem to me, at least at least in the state of Minnesota, was much more palatable, and I think is going to play a major role in the results we see tonight.
Well, I really hope so. I heard something earlier too on one of the shows on AM 950. I think it was Stephanie Miller, and they were joking that women don't forget. Men do forget all the time. We put our keys and everything, but women do not forget. So I think row your vote's going to really be helpful for us here in Minnesota.
The one of the things they're talking about, I'm the Native American vote. I have to admit, I when they showed me those redistricting maps, it was nice to see the tribes all combined into the Minnesota 8th district to create one. I can't stand it when they break them apart to just basically dilute their vote. And now we actually have one district where the Native vote matters, and I think that that's so important up in Minnesota 8.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I think too, if we back out 2 years ago at the last election cycle, we really came through, as you know, with having like 9,000 more new voters than before. And that really helped with the governor's race. And he was up there a lot, promising things. And I saw a lot of the same things happening up there. So, Alan Roy that you've had on
Yeah.
your show and I've had on my show, is gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
Did you get, I mean, Stauber usually doesn't care that much about the Native American vote. I don't think he spent too much time courting it. But did this change things? Did Stauber come on out and try to make some inroads with the Native American vote?
Not at all.
Okay, never mind.
No,
Not in the
no,
least.
and that's reported from Ogama, who's up there and has seen him at grocery stores and everything. But we were just talking about that today on our show. That basically, well, you know this, and he's taking credit for all these things he voted against.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember the first day he went out there and took credit for the infrastructure on the airports up there, which was part of the infrastructure bill. And he said, dude, you cannot claim credit for stuff you voted against. It's just not the case. I imagine Jen Schultz, though, did up there. And I'll tell you what, she was definitely surging here as we came into election day. I saw a candidate there. She was getting endorsements. She was out there, and I think she was out. Especially when you look at the strong DFL districts in the Minnesota 8. I'm sure Jen Schultz made some inroads to basically try to talk to the Native American population and find out what was important to them.
Yeah, I agree. But there's some things about Jen. Jen was on your show and our show too. We didn't get really deep into this, but I think now that the polls are closed, I can talk a little bit about that she's for mining up there, and because of the unions, and that's a slippery slope for us natives, because that's the same thing that kind of happens up with Line 3, that a lot of our Democrats, were siding with the unions, where and I know by listening to your show, you've reported this many times, is that especially with Line 3, what was there, 5,000 union jobs up there, but none of them were Minnesotans. They were
Yeah.
from all over the country.
They were supposed to be Minnesota jobs. They're supposed to pay great. They ended up, a lot of them were from Wisconsin. A lot of them weren't union jobs. And not only did they not hire the union people, they didn't pay what they promised. And we have to talk about the sexual assaults that were happening in Bemidji with the workers on that pipeline who would go into town, and it was ugly. There was a lot of nastiness that came into town with this that people don't want to talk about. Oh, as well as also the fact they punctured holes in the Mississippi River. Those idiots. It just is. You can't. You want to. Hey, if there's a responsible way to harvest responsibly, to make sure we're not polluting, we're not destroying, that we are basically able to well, as Native Americans have done their entire existence, live off the land responsibly, then fine, sure, let's do it. But if we can look and say there's no way you can do this without basically turning this into a cesspool, then I think we can walk away.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking here. I'm just Matt. I don't know if you were in the military when Herschel Walker played for the Vikings, but I'm looking at these numbers here, and Raphael is Warnock is ahead by 51% to 46%, with 1,000,003 and 1,000,002 votes, respectfully. And boy, I don't know if you were in the military when Herschel played here, but I know Pat Royce was always driven crazy by, he always talked in the third person, and people talk about him having possible brain damage from football. I think he was the same way as he is now, as he was as a Viking.
Actually, I got to tell you what, I'm going to go old school with you. When I was a kid, for 2 years, I lived on Lake Lanier in Georgia, outside of Beaufort, Georgia. And by the way, the most intelligent thing in Beaufort is the name. Anyway, I lived there, and so I was right by the University of Georgia, which is over in Athens. He played there while I lived down there. So I got front row seat for this guy. Amazing talent on the football field. He was not, I mean, there were people back then were saying, okay, this is a college student. This was not he didn't seem like he was past the test to get up there. And this was back when we still cared about stuff like that. I mean, nowadays, no one really cares. But back then it was like, okay, if you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to be able to, get the grades at a college. And he clearly couldn't. I was just as well down in Savannah, Georgia, 3 weeks ago. And I can tell you what, and for everyone out there who's a DFLer, go to Savannah. That is a lovely town, lots of great food, very pretty, and it is deep Democrat down there. They've already, as a matter of fact, their votes are coming in, and they're all very much for Warnock down there. So hopefully that's a trend that continues.
Yeah, and again, I don't know, Matt. What was your feeling? I spoke a lot on my show, Native Roots Radio, about they weren't counting everybody. I mean, the Gen Zers are pissed. I don't think they were counting them in the polls, and then the women crossing over from the Republican Party. I don't know. What was your feeling about that?
There are a few things. One, there was, first of all, and all these special elections since the Dodd decision, there was a palatable increase in Democratic turnout. New voter registration favored women 60 to 40. That's unheard of. Usually it's basically a 51-49 sort of thing. You have most of the women I know had either already voted or were planning on voting today and were still livid about this. You got Generation Z, and I've often said this: Generation Z is tired of our crap. They really are, and they're going to try to fix a lot of this. The millennials, not so much, but Generation Z, I think, is really just tired and very politically honed and active. My daughter voted for the first time today. She's Generation Z. So there's that. There definitely seems to be something there. And I mean, it's interesting because right now I'm noticing a lot of the national people saying, well, how much should we offset the early vote? I said, well, you shouldn't offset the early vote. They're still votes. So you just basically, because your narrative is that, Republicans are supposed to run away with this, but now all of a sudden you're seeing these votes come in that are keeping these Democrats close or keeping them in the lead. Don't try to argue the fact that those votes are somehow lesser votes. No, they're just votes. It just is. I think a lot of people, they bought the Republican, the line, hook, line, and sinker.
Well, and that's funny you should mention that, because I was going to bring up the fact that watching national news is really sickening. The way everything's slanted, and thank goodness that we're on AM 950 and civic media group, because one, we can bring our own truth, and also two, the way they slant, I mean, everything I've heard on news is that it's bad news for the Democrats. And before a vote was casted, we were hearing that. And how can that be? And, and then the misinformation, and also giving platforms to people that are totally ridiculous and out of reality. Remember when Trump ran, he didn't have to pay for any advertising at first, because he was getting $1 billion worth of free advertising, because of when they were on these news shows, the ratings went up.
Did you ever hear my rip on the Yahoo News the other day?
No.
Yahoo News had a headline saying Democrats doomed. Doomed was the term they used. Democrats doomed. So I pull up the poll. Their poll had the Democrats leading by 2. And I'm like, okay, how do you write that headline when they're only leading by 2? They're doomed. What? Just the ludicrous nature. By the way, we've got a call. Can I make this? Ilhan Omar has won Minnesota 5.
Come on.
I know that was can we call Betty McCollum yet? I mean, because that one's pretty much a shoe-in, and I'm pretty sure we probably can call Michelle Fischbach at this point as well. But I think they're relatively easy ones. But they did officially call Ilhan Omar has once again headed back to the U.S. House.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I really, I think Ilham is really grown into her position. I think when we first had her on the show, she didn't know too much about a lot of Native issues, and she's really grown into it. How have you seen that?
I think she's done a better job of understanding the diversity of that district. I mean, this is my first year. I'm actually out of 3 now. With redistrict, I'm now over, and I'm out of 5. I'm in 3. I'm over with Dean Phillips. And so, it was one of those things where I think she tried. I think that the thing that she has to remember, though, is that, I think that these national headlines are nice. You still have to represent the district. And I think that Don Samuels primary race, I hope that was the wake up call she needed. That you can't just be there for the sensational headlines and the the blurbs that you get. That you got to make sure you always represent your district, because as Jeff Stein always says, all politics is local. And I think that I've really gotten the impression since the primary that Ilhan has spent a lot of time in Minneapolis and a lot of time in that district, and is actually, I think, like I said, I think that scare was actually good. I think that's it's going to make her an even better representative.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that's a really good point. Hey, we have a voting in here in Minnesota for Scott Jensen and Tim Walz, and Scott Jensen's ahead, 61% to 34%, with 1% of the vote in. That's a 700 votes to 400 votes. So that's really early.
Oh, those western counties, they're not much to do. Elwyn and Agnes, they're sitting there. Let's send it on in. So I think you and I are both on the same page. Tim Walz is going to win re-election.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully, listened to your show today too. Hopefully, it will help our other really tight races. Like I can't believe Blaha and Keith Ellison's race is where it's at. We talked about Keith Ellison not losing a case as Attorney General, and then we talk about his opponent never trying a case.
And part of that extremist anti-abortion group. I will say this: what do you think? I honestly think the margin for Walz is going to be 10, and I think then it becomes incredibly difficult for any other Republican on those statewide races to win. What's your thought where Walz is going to end up?
Geez, I want him to be 13, but I don't know why 8 comes into my mind right now, 8%. But it's wavered up and down. But it'd be great to be 10 to 13%, and it would help all the other candidates.
If frankly, if it is 10, if it is a 8%, I think it's even that is a very tough hurdle for someone like Jim Schultz to overcome on the Attorney General's race. So that you're asking for 8% of the voters who are happy with Walz, who they vilified relentlessly, that are going to say, well, but then I'll just go against Keith Ellison. I don't know. I think the universal vilification of Walz and all the rest of the Democrats, it's an all or nothing sort of situation. Maybe not completely perfectly, definitely some independent voters, but 8 points, that's starting to get there. And so it's going to be interesting. And reminder, last election, Keith Ellison was underdog by 7 points on election day, and he ended up winning. So we'll have to see how that works. But as you said, the votes are just starting to trickle in. We'll have to keep an eye out on this as we keep these numbers going. You're going to be
it's 50-46 now, with 1,000 votes for Scott Jensen and 940 for Tim Walz.
Oh, okay.
Still 1%.
Hey, you're going to be on with the guys over in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I'm going to give him a ring when I get down. I'm not going to go downtown until a little later. I talked to a few people, and no one's going to be meandering down to the intercontinental downtown St. Paul until a little later. So I'm going to go down there unless these numbers start taking off, and there's going to be celebrating down there. But I want to get down there and then call in at Devil Radio.
All right, you tell the guys at Devil Radio I said hi. Okay.
Yeah, I love those guys. I was down there for. Did you see? I got a picture with former President Barack Obama. Did you see?
I saw that. Nice get. That's a nice get, my friend. That's a nice get.
I had a whole speech ready to go and say, hey, free Leonard Peltier, tell Joe Biden to free Leonard Peltier. And, Barack didn't stop Standing Rock until there was 10,000 former military people going into the camp. And I ended up saying, I got starstruck and saw him for 7 seconds, shook his hand and said, thank you for everything, and then walked away.
Understandable. That's understandable under that situation there.
Hey, did you ever see Chris Farley talking to John Lennon?
Oh, yeah.
Paul McCartney, I mean.
Yeah, that's good. So that's great. You remember when you were part of the Beatles? That was great. Yeah. Robert Pilot, listen to him on the Wisconsin side, of course, Native Roots Radio on in the 6 o'clock hour here. An absolutely exceptional show. Robert Ogama, I'm a fan, and you should be too. If you're not listening, you need to be. Robert Pilot, have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much. I appreciate you stopping on by.
Right on. Vote blue no matter who.
Indeed. Robert Pilot, kind enough to join us. Let's take a break. We'll come on back. We'll get some of these numbers in, see if we can call anything outside of the obvious races. We'll talk about that when we come back. It's election night coverage right here on AM 950.
November is upon us, and it's time to give thanks. One thing I'm thankful for this season is for the professionals at Zero Res who cleaned my home. Their cleaning process is platinum rated by the Carpet and Rug Institute for superior extraction and fast dry time. Their patented process, which includes ZR Clean, does not contain any harsh soaps, shampoos, or detergents, and it's safe for pets and kids. And their legendary 30-day Gotta Love It guarantee means they are not happy unless you are. They will come back, no questions asked, if you are not happy with any part of your service. No hassles and no worries. Call Zero Res right now, 952-ZERO-RES, or go online at ZeroResMinnesota.com and say you want the AM 950 special. 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at $139 with a free room of fiber protectant and $50 off air ducts. Call Zero Res today at 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com.
On This Queer Book Saved My Life, we talk with LGBTQ guests from across the rainbow about the queer books that saved their lives. On November 12th, we chat with Nancy Agabian about the groundbreaking memoir In the Dream House by National Book Award finalist Carmen Maria Machado. This book breaks the silence of abuse and queer relationships, and we talk with Nancy and Carmen about writing into that pain and what it takes to share difficult stories. Join us this Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on AM 950.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, pet ethics. Is it okay to own animals?
It's not just okay, it's a moral requirement. Everybody should have a dog.
Does everyone's dog get to live its best life?
Not every pet needs as much care as a dog. You could get a hamster or a goldfish.
Not every pet needs as little as a dog. What about parrots or sugar gliders?
Pet ethics. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
AM 950 election night coverage here. Election night 2022. Matt McNeil in for another about a half hour or so. Thanks to Robert Pilot. Thank you, by the way, to Rick Smith and Jeff Stein last hour. And thank you very much for coming up here in a little bit. Patrick Cooligan from Minnesota Reformer are going to be joining us here. One of the funnier things I've seen, you remember how I was talking with Pilot here about, one county out in the western part of the state. The map shows what county is that? Rock County. In the very far southwestern part of the state, that's the only county that's reported. I've already had on Twitter 2 Republicans saying, see the landslides beginning. It's Rock County. Hold your horses. Quite literally, I imagine you could hold your horses out in Rock County. But no, I don't think it's necessarily as goes Rock County sort of territory at this point. It's really early. Hardly any votes are in. You can't really determine anything about this because, at this point, it's just one county who's Republican, which is like Rock County. Makes it look like things are going one way or the other. Hey, let's roll Hennepin on in there. Let's see what happens. All right. Because, if I brought in Rock County and Hennepin County, I got to tell you who's going to be leading at the end if I just brought those 2 counties in. Minnesota House, Minnesota Senate, all these races, it's going to be decided. I can tell you right now, just by the way this is coming in right now, stay with us past 9 o'clock tonight. Stay with us as Brett Johnson and I'm who's with Brett?
It's going to be Todd Mickelson.
Todd Mickelson, thank you. I'm just looking at too many names. This is getting confusing for me. Todd Mickelson is going to have to join us. as well as Brett Johnson joining us. They're going to have basically, I imagine, a lot of the results coming through during their show. So make sure you're staying with us throughout the evening here on AM 950. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Keeping an eye out once again. I saw they had called, one outlet had called the governor's race in Pennsylvania. I have not seen anyone else make that call as of yet. I will say, just when you're looking at the governor's race, he's up by a shocking amount, although there's still a lot of votes that need to be counted there, but he's still up by a shocking amount. As both Cliff Schechter and Jeff Stein sort of predicted, Kemp right now is leading by 5 points in Georgia. Looking at that Senate race in Georgia, 62% of the vote is in. Warnock is leading by 3. Colorado, Bennett's leading. Bennett's going to win easy. New Hampshire, Hassan is up by 20 points, but they haven't updated that one recently. Hopefully it hasn't been too much updates on that race. It's been coming in pretty slowly. Ohio is got Vance leading, but that's by 47, only 47%, and Fetterman leading by 20 points with 20%. And so it's still not, it's way too early to call any of those races and where those are going to end up. And of course, here in Minnesota, we still have a lot of updates here that are just, they're just not coming in yet because it's just the votes are just starting to trickle in the election night coverage on this. I will say, it's 4,000, 5,000 total votes have come in, and pretty much the only county that's showing up as having reported is Rock County out in the southwestern side of the state. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. When we come on back, Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer joins us. It's, of course, election night coverage right here on AM 950.
Seward Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
The local advertisers you hear on AM 950 are the lifeblood of the station. If you find yourself regularly tuning in, or if you appreciate the diversity of content we deliver, please take the time to support our advertisers. Even if it's just to thank them for backing AM 950, your voice and support can go a long way. Help keep the station going strong while investing in our local community. Find the complete list of on-air supporters by visiting the advertisers page at am950radio.com. That's am950radio.com.
No matter if you're eating out or cooking something at home, eatlocalminnesota.com has you covered with a list of locally owned restaurants and food purveyors. Locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oil and vinegar since 2009. Reintroduce yourself to all the many flavors by tasting before you buy. From darker white balsamic to cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil from all over the world, there is something for everyone. Vinaigrette, located at 50th and Xerxes in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for fun. Enjoy the fantastic food like their pizzas, burgers, and sandwiches, the best bowling in Minnesota, their wildly popular outdoor patio, great drink specials, all the big games on their numerous screens, and it's the perfect place for your next private event, even large gatherings for over 200. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for everyone. Have fun at the Park Tavern, Louisiana Avenue, north of Highway 7 in St. Louis Park.
Hi, this is Laura. Listen to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. or anytime via podcast. Our individual health is connected to the health of each other and connected to the health of the earth. We know the problems with the dominant food system: climate change, deadening soils, nitrates in the water, factory farming, injustice, concentration of wealth. How do we both as individuals and as a community step up and support a living food system which honors the earth? Tune to Food Freedom Radio every Saturday at 8 a.m. and remember to support your independent farmers.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Join us for New Beginnings, Saturday mornings at 11, brought to you in part by Vision Loss Resources.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lulia. Showers and storms tonight with temperatures around 52. More showers and storms on Wednesday with a high of 65. The locally owned Vinaigrette has been offering the finest olive oils and vinegars since 2009. That's Vinaigrette, Xerxes Avenue and 50th Street in Minneapolis, or at vinaigrettemn.com.
Election night coverage here at AM 950. Good to have you with us here tonight at 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. I'm looking at another video here. This one is at UCLA. That is an insanely long line of people there to vote. I will say this, it definitely does look as if, Generation Z has had it with our crap. Just they are showing up. And it's going to be interesting to see how this weighs. Let's take a look. Let's talk a little bit more. Patrick Cooligan is kind enough to join us. Minnesota Reformer. If you're not following the Minnesota Reformer, it's absolutely the best news outlet here in the Twin Cities. Patrick Cooligan kind enough to join us and talk about the election so far. We don't really have any numbers, Patrick. It is really too early, but as Murray County and Rock County out in western the part of the state go, the rest of the state is not going to go along with them, I don't think, at least not at this point.
You're probably right about that. I think we'll wait for Hennepin and Ramsey before we make any calls on how the day went.
I mean, what were you guys hearing over there in that in regards to there's this interesting debate. I mean, the early voting was pretty strong and favored Democrats. There were reports of a lot of long lines and a lot of people out there voting. What are you hearing? Is it sounding like it was, really kind of a toss up, or did you get an impression that one side or the other was having an advantage by the end of the day today?
Well, that's hard to know. It used to be not that long ago that heavy turnout used to really benefit Democrats. And lower turnout was good for Republicans, but the politics have changed, and Republicans showed that with heavy turnout they can perform well, and that was certainly true in 2020. We saw early vote come in, early and election day vote in Minneapolis was fairly robust, especially compared to a typical year, but not compared to 2018. And that's kind of a big marker for Democrats. I don't think they have to match 2018, but that's certainly going to be a high watermark for a midterm election. And then the question is, how animated are Republican voters in these in outstate counties, and can they perform as they have when Donald Trump is on the ballot, when he's not on the ballot? That was the question for today.
Well, and I think there's also this other shift that we saw with redistricting. Are we becoming a state like Illinois, where just Chicago is just such an obnoxious amount of the vote in that state that it controls what basically happens? Are we starting to get there with Minneapolis, St. Paul, that the size of the city and the fact that it does lean Democrat, is it too much then? And then you throw in Duluth, you throw in Rochester, you throw in, core parts of St. Cloud and parts of Moorhead. It just becomes too much for the Republicans to overcome, because we're starting to get to that point. I mean, the city, it's a good sign the city is growing, but there is that interesting question of the demographics of it all. Is it going to be just a case where the cities itself just dictate the rest of the state from that point as far as statewide races?
Definitely the two cities and the suburbs. I mean, don't forget the suburbs have grown markedly since the last census 2010. And whereas a lot of outstate counties, greater Minnesota counties, have stagnated, in some cases lost population. And it's also the type of people who are now in the cities. It's both more racially and ethnically diverse. It's younger. It's a lot of educated professionals who have swung toward the Democrats in recent years, especially since Donald Trump came on the scene. So, the Twin Cities Metro has become this kind of electoral political behemoth. And that's one of the main reasons why Republicans have not won a statewide race here since 2006. Now, the question of putting together a governing coalition that can win legislative majorities, that's a whole different question. And there is the issue that Democrats have of being packed into these. They have so many voters packed into these urban districts. Their vote is not as geographically spread out as well as Republicans, and that's prevented Democrats from controlling the legislature, even as they have just dominated in these statewide races.
The Minnesota actually has done early voting performance. It actually has done relative to 2020, the presidential election year. They've done fairly well. I know that it's in 2018 as well. I want to go back to those two elections. 2018, well, that's when Governor Walz and this entire crew that currently is up for re-election came into power. 2020 was also another Democratic win year for Joe Biden. This is supposed to be an overwhelming Republican year. This is a midterm election and a Democratic president. And the fact that we can't well, for sure, I'm pretty clear at this point that the polls showed Governor Walz with an advantage. Unless something really shocking happens, Walz should win re-election. I think that you are seeing some level of effect, whether or not it's portrayed as how it's portrayed is going to remain to be seen. Because on one side, you could easily say, wow, Republicans really did underperform because they should have mopped up the House, especially with inflation in a midterm election. On the other side of it, the Democrats can argue that Roe v. Wade overturning that did not resonate for as long as it needed to, and ended up costing them some seats.
Yeah, I think the election is going to be a lot about these difficult national political environment for Democrats. 8.5% inflation, rising homicide rates in most large American cities, plus the midterm curse, where the party that controls the White House just always loses midterm elections for the most part. Could Democrats overcome that? And certainly that they had this mitigating factor of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. I think that effect may be somewhat blunted by the fact that we have this a court precedent that has made abortion rights pretty much enshrined in law here. But again, can Republicans overcome some of the disadvantages they have here locally, primarily? And you laugh at this, but it's pretty simple. There are more Democrats in Minnesota than Republicans.
Yeah.
And so for Republicans to have a big year, they need to overcome that by drawing a fair amount of Democratic voters or Democratic leaning independents. And Schultz obviously did a pretty good job with that because he focused on one issue in particular. It was a very high profile issue, no matter how dishonest it was. But Scott Jensen, their nominee for governor, was not able to run a campaign that had really any crossover appeal for independents and Democrats. When
Souchere was at the state fair and had to chew them out, basically publicly say you cannot go down far right Loonballville and expect to win. That was one thing. The fact that when on that KSTP debate, when asked point blank, about COVID, and he said, well, COVID didn't kill all these people, ventilators did. I think there was some momentum definitively going in Jensen's way. And at that point, it felt like it hit a wall because I think, it's as much as COVID has not played a role here, to bring up such what frankly is an outrageous statement that the ventilators kill people, not COVID. I think that caused a lot of people to stop and say, yeah, maybe I'm more comfortable with Tim Walz than I originally thought.
Right. And the problem for Jensen was that he rose to prominence in the national right-wing media through his COVID denialism and vaccine skepticism. And the problem is that was never going to be very appealing to Minnesota, which has a long, proud history on healthcare issues. And the vast majority of people here got vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So that was appealing to him. He was appealing to Republican base voters, the kinds of voters who gave him the endorsement at their convention. But that's not going to appeal to the whole state. And so what he needs to do after their convention was really break away from that image of sort of the country doctor who doesn't believe COVID is serious. And there were moments in the campaign when he could have done that but he just took the bait again and again and again. And you mentioned the ventilator. I mean, in the most recent debate, he should never have been talking about COVID because that's not a good issue for him.
No.
And then of course the Nazi comparison is, I mean, it's, not only is it just reminding people of his bizarre, I shouldn't say bizarre, let's call it out of the mainstream COVID views, but it's also offensive to a lot of people, certainly Jewish voters, but everybody else ought to be a little bit offended at these comparisons between the public health restrictions during a pandemic and Nazi Germany. So he had the opportunity, he just wasn't self-disciplined enough to capitalize.
So in your mind, just as you see it, where's the break point? So if Walz beats Jensen by this many points, it becomes, you're, as you just sort of said, I think very astutely, we're not at a point where there's going to be a tremendous amount of swing where I'm going to vote for the governor as a Democrat and I'll vote for the Republican as a, say, attorney general. Where do you think, if Jensen loses to Walz by this many points, it becomes next to impossible for any Republican further down the ticket to get any kind of breakaway from that?
Well, historically, there has not been a lot of ticket splitting. And so I think that certainly bodes well for Democrats if Walz can really lead the ticket. And people are not going to vote for Republicans in statewide races while they vote for Walz. It's just historically, they don't do that. I mean, I think, but every election is different. And I mean, I guess a 5-point victory would be pretty tough to overcome for the rest of the Republican ticket. But it does feel like a pretty unusual year, even for Minnesota.
Well, and also you should remember too that Ellison was favored to lose actually last election in 2018. And he came back and he won quite handily. And so it is going to be interesting. I think that I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that walked in there and either voted straight R or straight DFL, and that's that. One race I want to chat with you about. Last thing I'll ask you about tonight, because I know you're really busy, and I appreciate your time, Patrick. I really do. The Hennepin County Attorney's race. There hasn't been a lot of talk about this because there's been, of course, the statewide races, but this Holton Dimick and Moriarty race, you can clearly see a lot of kind of more the established police, more conservative prosecutors and stuff. They're a little bit concerned about Mary Moriarty possibly winning and taking that seat.
Sure. I mean, she's a public defender. She's represented accused criminals during her career. She has been very outspoken about being a criminal justice reformer and holding police accountable and prosecutors for that matter. We've seen in other parts of the country like Philadelphia, San Francisco, where they've elected defense lawyers to be their top prosecutors. I think the results have been mixed. In San Francisco, the top prosecutor was actually recalled. But the DA in Philadelphia was reelected. It's definitely a new thing. It would be a very a new road for Hennepin County to go down. You have to remember that Senator Amy Klobuchar was the county attorney, and I mean she really was known as a tough on crime prosecutor, and that's how she got a lot of statewide recognition from local media. So that office has traditionally been by no means soft on crime, and I think Mary Moriarty would definitely take it in a different direction.
I think she would. I do not get the impression from being in Hennepin County and just watching that race kind of unfold a little bit. I don't get the impression she would go that San Francisco route. I think that if she had thoughts of doing anything like that at that point, I think that was a lesson learned, that if you basically get too extreme, that even a city which is a very liberal stronghold will lose patience with you.
I would hope. Just personally speaking, I also think that Minnesota is, Hennepin County, Minneapolis they're progressive places, but they're also the middle of the country, and I think prudence is a kind of Minnesota value. So we'll see if she wins what she does. I mean, certainly will be interesting to watch if she does prevail.
I'm going to take a few moments to praise you once again. Minnesota Reformer is an absolutely outstanding news outlet. If you're not following it, not donating to it, you're wrong. You should be, because it is really some of the best news, period, here. And in the last year, some of the stories you guys have put out have been some of the best journalism I've read in 30 years. It has been absolutely spectacular. I'm sure you guys are got a full team working on this, and we'll have full coverage of the results tomorrow, correct?
Thanks so much. Yeah, we really appreciate it and all the support we have from our readers and supporters. So it's very kind of you to say. And yeah, we're working hard tonight and tomorrow morning.
All right, make sure you check it out. Minnesota Reformer, Patrick Cooligan, kind enough to join us. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate the time tonight. Let's take a break. Come on back. We'll see if we can give some updates on some of the Minnesota races, as once again, just numbers are starting to just trickle on in at this point. It is election night coverage right here on AM 950.
This is the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space.
And our intention is that these conversations spark your own curiosity that creates a life that totally lights you up.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. See you soon and stay curious.
Hi, this is Paul Metza inviting you to listen to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We have been on the air on AM 950 for over 5 years, over 200 original shows in the can, including musicians, artists, promoters, authors, comedians, and more. We're on the air Saturdays at 6 p.m. If you'd like to advertise, get a hold of us at am950radio.com and stay tuned this weekend, Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Hi, I'm Scott Shamblot from Shamblot Family Dentistry. We're the fear-free, shame-free dental office. We know dental anxiety and dental phobia are real. We'll take the time to get to know you and give you what you need to be comfortable at all times. We offer free nitrous oxide laughing gas and have high-tech options to help you feel calm and relaxed during your appointments. We'll help you get through every appointment in the most pain-free way possible. If you're having a dental emergency, we'll try and get you in the same day you call, because we don't like to see anyone in pain. As my daughter Rachel says,
if you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been going to Shamblot Family Dentistry for years. They get me in last minute when I'm in pain and make regular checkups easy and comfortable.
Shamblot Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblotfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
Hello, AM 950 listener. I know you. You take the news seriously. When you read the headlines these days, it makes you want to hang your head down and cry. Well, to hell with that. What you need is a laugh from the left. So do yourself a favor. Listen to Facepalm America with host Beowulf Rockland every Sunday night at 9.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our live call-in talk show airing every Saturday from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights you need to know to live and age well. Each week, we talk with guests who provide answers to important questions regarding healthcare, elder care, end-of-life care, and self-care for caregivers, and help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
AM 950 election coverage continuing here. So I found my first interesting sign that is good news for Governor Walz. Rice County, just south of the Twin Cities metro area, traditionally a little bit more Republican. Now, was part for the first district for a long time, I believe, or at least half of it was. I think half of it was, and that's when Governor Walz was down there representing Minnesota 1. So a seat that he's got some history with, an area there, but an area that generally has run more Republican. Well, they're got 75% of their vote in right now, and Walz is leading 52-45. That's a 7-point lead there. Lake County has come on in. They're just starting to get in results. But needless to say, as more results come in, we're at 1% of the precincts reporting 24,464 for Walz and Flanagan, And Jensen and Burke, 20,397. It's a 52-44. Once again, Cooligan said 5. I think Stein was kind of closer to 8, and Schechter was closer to 8. I think it's 10. If this ends up being a 7, 8, 9 point win for Walz over Jensen, I'm with Cooligan. I don't see how, in this day and age, people generally vote straight ticket. I voted straight ticket, all DFL. All libertarian. No, all DFL. I just do not see, if this goes like this for Jensen's got to, if Schultz is going to have any chance, I think, at knocking off Ellison, he can't be swimming up against a current from his own party that is 7 or 8 points against him. None of the other races so far have much coming in on them. Yeah, and most of it is just 1%, 1%, 1%. But as I've been mentioning, stay with us through the evening. Todd Mickelson, Brett Johnson, they're going to be here. They'll have tons of coverage here of all the election results as they come on in. Nationally, let's see if there's been any updates on any of the races so far. As we mentioned earlier, Rubio has been declared the winner. In Georgia, Walker is now leading by 1.2% with 70% of the vote in. Looking at the state, though, votes remain. The votes remain. A lot of votes in Atlanta remain. There's a lot of votes around the Atlanta area, but Atlanta is obviously the big number. We'll have to see what happens there. Hassan in New Hampshire still is leading in that race. Bennett is going to win in Colorado. That's easy. Fetterman is still up substantially in Pennsylvania. We'll have to see how that holds up. No governor. The governor's races, they haven't called any of the other ones. That Shapiro, he still is leading dramatically, but at least New York Times here has not called that race overall. So, and the rest of these races are tight. Now, I will say this: if you're a Democrat, I think that is you're definitely looking at. If you're a Democrat, I think you're looking at these races being tight as a good sign, because once again, this is a midterm election in a Democratic president's year, and all due respect, this should be a landslide for the Republicans. It's the way it's been going. The fact that right now there still is a very decent chance that the Democrats are going to hold the Senate, and there's a decent chance, I think, that they're going to hold the House as well, or at least make it really uncomfortable. Because I can tell you right now, if the Republicans end up winning the House, but by 1 or 2 votes, there's not much they're going to be able to get done, because I can guarantee you there's going to be some Republicans there that say, I'm not going to go with Marjorie Taylor Greene on her agenda. I'm not going to. It's going to be interesting to watch that. If the U.S. House is like a 1 or 2 Republican seat majority, it basically they get Joe Manchined. Then all of a sudden you've got you're going to have 10 or 20 House Republicans who will understand they can just side with the Democrats and get whatever they want done. And eagerly, the Democrats will allow them to take, you want a bill, you want some pork in there? Fine, we'll take care of that for you. They know that. And so it's going to be very interesting to watch the Republican Party try to keep that delegation together, especially as, Captain Dingbat herself and Marjorie Taylor Greene tries to pull that party into the extreme far right. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Once again, not much I can report here as far as the statewide races. The election result numbers, they're just starting to come on in. Polls closing: Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Utah, and Nevada. That's coming up here in about 3 minutes. All those polls will close on up, and we'll see. Have some ideas. Keep an eye on that Nevada race. That's going to be kind of interesting there. But overall, once again, as it comes in, and it comes in very, very slowly. So far, it is a 52.7 to 44 lead for Walz with hardly anyone reporting. So once again, take all of this with a grain of salt, and you can have all those outside, rural counties out there When we start to get in the metro area counties in, we'll have a better idea. When St. Louis County with Duluth comes on in there, Olmsted County down in Rochester, that comes on in, then we'll have a real idea of where this is coming from. But I will once again say that Rice County with Walls leading Jensen by 7 there, that's one of those counties that if this was going to be a red wave, that would not be a 7-point Democratic win. That would not be there. That's my first one that I said, oh, this might be trouble for the Republicans. We'll have to find out on that. Now, I am done. A full breakdown of this on the show tomorrow. Make sure you're here. We'll talk about Minnesota. We'll talk about Wisconsin, all sorts of other things as well. Coming up here, Todd Mickelson, Brett Johnson. They'll take you through the rest of the evening. Thank you for being here. Enjoy election coverage of 2022 right here on AM 950.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches,